the truth is, people who are hurtful, they're just hurting inside. And the problem is, we let them take advantage of us. And we let them take advantage because you have to tell them to stop. And they don't. They're going to hate that. Go ahead and try to tell someone to stop when they're angry and mad and being dysfunctional towards you. Tell them to stop. Wonder how far you're going to get with that. I don't recommend you to tell them to stop, but I'm just saying, why can't they stop? Why does someone who's being dysfunctional have to be told what to do? How come they don't realize it? So it's very interesting, these people. And it's not to say these people as if I'm not one of them. I think all humans have the capacity to become someone who doesn't realize that their state is coming from an unhealthy influence within their own interpretation of themselves. It's not easy to see that truth. It's one thing to talk about, it's one thing to think about, it's another thing to live it, you know? So the reality is, don't let people just destroy you. Don't let people talk any way they want to. And don't cater to them. What you're going to have to realize at some point in life, maybe to some way and to some capacity, you have to be flexible with that. But that sucks because maybe you're in a situation where that has to be the case. Maybe, and maybe not. So you have to differentiate what is and what isn't the reality that needs to be contributed to. However, regardless, what you can realize is if it's not the case that you have to allow this to continue, right? If it's not the case, you know, I'd like to say like there's strategies to create a healthier environment. I'd like to say that there are strategies to create a healthier environment, you know, and I understand that there's a big strategy within ourselves that can actually come from a healthier sense of self, right? And a healthier idea of who we are. We heal our own wounds. We get to the bottom of our own problems, and I understand that's really what it's all about. Because if you could do that, you could be in the presence of anybody and be like, wow, they're hurting. That's easier said than done, but I mean, truly, if you were to really heal yourself to such a degree, and you were to really come from such a healthy, happy place, you could look at dysfunction and be like, wow, they're struggling. All that person is doing right now, they're struggling. They're having a difficult time. So I'd like to say like that's ultimately the goal where we could eventually be in life. But regardless of that being a goal or not being a goal or anything you care about that idea, the bottom line is maybe some people you have to let go. Maybe some people you have to say, hey, you know what? That's not for me. And here's the thing. Maybe you don't even have to explain to them why you stopped talking to them. Maybe you don't have to explain to them why you're no longer going to reach out. Maybe you don't have to do that. You know, I think a lot of times we do that because we're still coming from this neediness, this idea of needing to be accepted, even by the people who are hurtful to us. We still need to be accepted by them because we can't stand the idea of feeling rejected or denied. You know, I think there's deep stuff going on that we're not realizing, which we're contributing to because we don't want to. We don't want to feel like that. We don't realize we're even feeling like that to begin with. It's just instinct. It's like avoiding the problem. We don't want to feel like we're a problem. So we're really avoiding ourselves. So the reality is, maybe there's a point in time, you know, if you're not going through these processes of like healing and getting to your wounds and being in like, you know, this very, you know, capable state of like self-love, and you can see reality for what it actually is and reality within another for how it actually is. And maybe even if you can see that, I'm not saying you need to be in that dysfunctional state because you're not a dysfunctional person at that point maybe. But even if you aren't a dysfunctional person, it doesn't mean you need to be in someone's state regardless. You don't need to be around people who are mistreating others. You don't need to be around others who are uncomfortable to be around just because, you know, they're a manipulative and nasty person. Doesn't mean you need to be around that. No matter how like self-good you get. But it's up to you. This is all an individual thing, and it's also based off another individual. Whom are you talking about? Under what context? Under what situation? So it's all like independent to a degree, so you really could come to like some kind of agreement within yourself based on how you view any of this. But the bottom line is, what I'm trying to also encourage us to realize is hey, that's not how I talk to people. That's not how I treat others, and you don't have to tell anybody that. See, the problem is, since people who are like this, they are little kids trapped in this adult body. Because really, what does it mean by little kid? I'm not trying to like belittle. I'm not trying to like make fun of. I'm not trying to say, oh, you're a little kid. Look at you in this adult body. Like that sounds even like really demeaning. That sounds like I'm making fun of them or I'm degrading them. And it's like, that's not the case. That's not where I'm coming from. What I'm actually meaning by when I say they're a little kid trapped in their adult body is we're all little kids trapped in our body. What is a little kid? A little kid is their viewpoint of himself. And if that viewpoint of himself doesn't actually progress, that viewpoint of himself doesn't actually integrate emotion, if that viewpoint of himself never gets to understand that they're capable and they can rely on themselves and they're independently happy, self-sufficient, loving person to whom they are, if they never actually develop that, which I think a lot of the problem is that's what actually is occurring, because it's the idea of the conscious state which is developing throughout our entire lifetime, and that conscious state gets to have an attachment of what it is, and that's the idea of who you are. So the ultimate idea is most people just don't feel good about themselves. They're not happy with who they are, and so one's reactions in the world around them, a lot of the time, I'd even like to say most of the time, is about how they feel about themselves. So the bottom line is, you're gonna try to contribute to someone feeling better about themselves, or you're gonna try to get involved with somebody so they can try to understand how they're feeling is wrong. You're gonna really try to convince somebody that how they're feeling is wrong. You see, that's the problem. It's like we tell everybody you're being wrong, you're being like this, you're being like that. So what they're gonna do, they're going to be sarcastic back, because you're basically declining their existence. You're basically saying you're wrong, you're being wrong, and that becomes something that's very personal, where someone is now feeling, I'm not wrong. Don't tell me I'm wrong, because the way they're feeling is protecting who they actually are deep down, which is struggling. Who they are is a struggle. And you want to point that out to somebody? You want to try to change that? You want to try to influence that? I'm just saying, you can do whatever you want, but the bottom line is, sometimes you have to let people just be who they are. You want to continue being around them, you want to have them involved in your life, that's up to you, whatever it is, but what I'm trying to say is you actually don't need to contribute to it. Because it's sad, because it's weird. If you really think about it, why should anyone, and this is the whole irony, a lot of people who are adults, especially if they're much older, what we could say is, why am I going to tell another adult how to behave? Why should I have to tell another adult what they're doing is wrong? Why should I have to do that? How come they're not able to do that? So that's the problem. We think, and I really think it's our own protective mechanism to be more accepted, to like help them or tell them. But whatever you want to do, but I think the bottom line is, it's like, even though there's a lot of truth in that, like, look at that. People who get in arguments with each other, they have to realize, like, why am I going to tell this other adult that the way they're behaving is really inappropriate or really degrading or belittling or condescending or manipulative? Why do I have to do that? Why can't they figure it out? Well, the reason why they can't figure it out is because they never really developed their full authentic idea of who they are, which is really should be based off happiness and love and compassion and understanding and patience and contentment and all that good stuff. It really should be based off that, but instead it's based off fear, anger. It's based off frustration. It's based off needing to be right, needing to be forceful, needing to be strong influence, needing to be the authority. needing to be in power, needing to be in control, because all one is doing is at this point compensating for how they're actually struggling with how they feel about themselves. So the idea is like, what is all that's struggling? Well, that's how they developed that idea of themselves when they were a child, and that's never really changed. That idea of themselves never really changed, but they've adapted to it. They've given themselves more meaning. They've given themselves, however that more meaning developed, that more meaning could have developed by having a higher status with an education, having a higher status with some kind of good job, having a higher status with some kind of ability to make money, having a higher status of feeling the authority over something in their life. Maybe they become a parent, they feel the authority, they're the head of the household, they're head of the child, they're the one who's now the influencer. They feel authority when they go to work. Maybe they need to tell people what to do, or they get a high level job where they're now the authority and in control of their environment, what happens. And those people could even talk any way they want to people. And what are you going to do? You're underneath them. Maybe they're very intelligent people and they can manipulate the entire idea, which is coming from how they actually feel about themselves. So they can be a very manipulative person because they're good at it. They've been manipulating themselves. They've been manipulating themselves since the beginning of time of who they were. So the idea is like, they become master manipulators, and a lot of these people don't even realize they're a manipulator. They think that this is normal. They think everything that they can know exactly why you feel the way you feel and why you think the way you think, because they think they're good at it. They think they know people when in fact they don't know anybody. And the reason why they don't know anybody is because they don't know themselves.